Happy Friday, everybody. James Hancock here. I'm back to review episode 6 of season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, an episode called The Sounds of Thunder. This might shock people that have been following my channel for a while, but I thought this was one of the better episodes this season, at least by Discovery standards, and I think it's worth calling attention to why. I try but don't always succeed in avoiding having either blind love or blind hate for the shows and franchises that interest me, and in spite of all the trash that I've talked about this show this season, if CBS manages to salvage this franchise at some point, we all win. Who knows if that'll happen, but I try to keep an open mind. But before I get to my official recap and review, I do have some CBS-related news. Yesterday, we got our first look at the new Twilight Zone trailer, a show hosted by Jordan Peele. I'm rooting hard for that show to be amazing, primarily because the Twilight Zone is one of the coolest things in the history of the universe. But secondly, if the Twilight Zone becomes the new flagship show for CBS, perhaps CBS won't cling so desperately to the idea that Star Trek Discovery is perfect in every way as it stands, and they'll be able to think more objectively about what direction it should take in the future. Also, my new rule for these Star Trek videos is that I'm going to call attention to something amazing in Star Trek history in every video, just so I don't wallow completely in negativity with each video. For the first time in decades, I've been revisiting the Star Trek animated series, which ran from 1973 to 1975. There are only 22 episodes, so they have to be savored and appreciated, but they're the perfect little bite-sized chunks of Star Trek, almost like a little dessert anytime you need a reminder of just how otherworldly and strange and beautiful and delightful Star Trek and its original cast could be when they were firing on all cylinders. As far as The Sounds of Thunder is concerned, the plot of this episode sees the crew of the Discovery following the trail of the Red Angel to Saru's home planet, Kaminar. For centuries, Saru's people, the Kelpians, have bought into a lie of maintaining the Great Balance, where they voluntarily allow themselves to be culled by their oppressors, the Ba'ul, who are technologically superior and who achieved warp 20 years ago. While the crew of the Discovery initially has no idea why they're there, Saru and his sister soon learn that long ago it was actually the Kelpians who were the predators and the Ba'ul their prey, until the Ba'ul's technology allowed them to flip the narrative. Saru and his sister take it upon themselves to liberate their species by creating this catalyst that will allow their species to evolve past the point in their maturity where they're typically culled, essentially allowing their ganglia to fall off, whereupon they become a fearless people, capable of negotiating a new Great Balance with the Ba'ul. When Saru comes face to face with the Red Angel at the finale, he develops the hypothesis that the Red Angel is actually humanoid with technology far more advanced than anything in their current time, perhaps a time traveler who is manipulating the fates of entire species with the help of the Discovery. Overall, it's a pretty solid episode with its fair share of good moments and bad, so let's sink our teeth into what worked and what did not. The evolution of Saru's character is an excellent example of both. Saru's newfound courage makes him much more prone to confrontation, almost like he's having childish temper tantrums, leading to behavior that is rather insubordinate. If you tried to pull any of this crap with Captain Kirk, or Picard, or Sisko, they would just break him in two. But because this is Discovery, where everything is soft and fuzzy, where neither discipline nor the chain of command have any relevance, Saru's insubordination is almost totally ignored by Pike, apart from Pike ordering Saru to leave the bridge. That said, I do like the weaponized physical changes we're seeing in Saru, even if his Hulk smash scene was a little ridiculous. It'll be interesting to see when it comes to his biology if there are any more secrets to be discovered. What I really enjoyed about this episode was the absence of so many things that drive me crazy in other episodes. There were no lectures about empathy. There were no speeches about how amazing everybody is. Tilly actually behaved like an intelligent human being instead of an overcaffeinated lunatic. And there was not a single condescending statement about mansplaining or manlier-than-thou posturing. The complete lack of an ideological agenda was almost shocking, but very refreshing overall. We were still subjected to yet another bland opening monologue, this time by Saru, and it occurred to me that these opening monologues are written a lot like inspirational memes and quotes on Twitter. I absolutely loathe inspirational tweets, in particular those Twitter accounts devoted exclusively to sharing inspirational tweets where shallow thoughts like, "Don't share your dreams, show them," are somehow perceived to be incredibly insightful. In any event, in the context of this show, these monologues still need a lot of work. Another surprise I did not anticipate is how much I'm actually enjoying having Ash Tyler back. I had kind of forgotten that he's actually a pretty cool character when he's not talking like Voq, and I'm enjoying seeing the exchanges between him and Pike as Pike struggles with having Section 31 on board the Discovery, watching his every move. I also thought the Ba'ul at least looked kind of cool. The one we see basically looked like the lead singer of a death metal band after a long swim in a pool of oil, but this show is in desperate need of some really cool looking bad guys, so that detail at least gets a big thumbs up from me. The big question for me is the degree to which the crew of the Discovery seems willing to make major decisions that brings about sweeping colossal changes to the species they encounter. Forcing the Kelpians all to suddenly evolve physically seemed really extreme and not at all in keeping with the philosophy of the Federation. The Kelpians should have at least had a role in the decision. Also, did all the Kelpians get affected, even the kids? That would be a lot like forcing the entire human race to suddenly go through puberty all at once, irrespective of their age. But because this episode didn't make me constantly flinch in annoyance or puke in my mouth in disgust, I'll give that little detail a pass. So as crazy as it sounds, I didn't really have a problem with this episode. A few more episodes like it could possibly salvage what for me has been a disastrous season so far. But the next episode opens up a major Pandora's box. Burnham wants to return to Vulcan, so I'm sure there'll be some massive retconning and rewriting of Spock's origins. When the writers of this show tell us about how Spock suffers from severe empathy deficits, it reminds me vividly of really annoying bloggers and podcasters out there who only know how to discuss old movies by explaining how they're problematic. But I don't want to get ahead of myself by criticizing an episode before I've seen it, so let's just wait and see. So before wrapping this up, I should also give a shout out to last night's episode of The Orville. It's one of the best episodes in either of the two seasons and a total game changer for the future of that show. If you haven't been following The Orville, definitely get up to speed now. But I think that's all I have to say about this particular episode. So if you enjoyed this review, please consider giving me a subscribe. If you want to talk more about Star Trek, The Orville, sci-fi, whatever, you can find me on Twitter at Colbrax, and there's a link in the description below. But thanks so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.